every business needs a CFO, or a family needs a CFO, someone that's in charge that can say no. And I guess my point is, though, but that's thinking like an owner investor. And you did the single most important action, which is you're physically removing money from one account to another account. And that is the only way that you will ever create reserves, or that you'll ever create money that will be available for further investment. You know, I always use the example, you know, how much money are in 401k plans right now in our country? And I think the number, last time I checked, it could be more than this. It's like $7 trillion, right? I mean, it's an enormous amount of money. Why? Because it is physically removed from someone's paycheck, right? And that is the successful action of why it seems to work. Now, people can argue about, you know, 401k plans all day long, but that action is what creates, you know, the money to get set aside.
Hello and welcome to the Chris Wolfe Podcast on iCode Media. Today I had a great conversation with Eric Miller. He's a financial planner, financial advisor, financial guru for healthcare owners and practice owners. We talked about being an owner investor. It was a great conversation. I haven't talked to Eric since 2020, but I always have a great time and picking his brain and trying to get to understand the way he thinks. So please enjoy our conversation. As always, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, write a review, share it with your friends, and support those who support us. I want to discuss the MyDay toric contact lens for a minute. When I'm reaching for a daily lens for my patients, I need to know that it will be available in the parameters I want, and it also needs to work. This improves my chair time and my patient satisfaction. The MyDay toric lens features the same optical lens design features as the most prescribed monthly replacement toric lens on the market, the Biofinity toric. MyDay toric now completely mirrors Biofinity toric's parameter range, and to be clear, this means that if you can find a parameter in the Biofinity toric, you can find it in the MyDay toric. This toric lens design is multifaceted to ensure optimal visual acuity, lens stability, fit, and comfort. Its uniform horizontal ISO thickness and wide ballast band quickly orient the lens for better performance and simplified fitting processes. When prescribing MyDay contact lenses, you can feel confident about your environmental impact because for every MyDay contact lens sold in the United States, CooperVision's partner, Plastic Bank, collects and converts an equal amount of ocean-bound plastic through their global network. The MyDay multifocal and MyDay toric contact lenses will provide your patients with great vision quality and comfortable lens experience, all while making a difference in our environment. So if you haven't started utilizing MyDay multifocal in your practice, I'd encourage you to reach out to your CooperVision representative to get started. My patients with macular degeneration want clear and succinct recommendations from me related to products and solutions that can benefit their long-term ocular health and vision. To do this for my patients, I need to be confident that what I'm recommending will have a benefit to them, and that's why my supplement of choice is MacuHealth. MacuHealth is specifically formulated and clinically proven to rebuild and maximize macular pigment over a lifetime. This results in enhanced visual performance and aids in the treatment and prevention of age-related macular degeneration. I've discussed carotenoid absorption on this podcast with Dr. Nolans and Stringham, and MacuHealth uses a patented process called micromicelle technology. And this technology is clinically proven to increase carotenoid concentrations at the target tissue and deliver the highest level of bioavailability studied to date. MacuHealth has been great for my patients. We really feel like we have the ability to help those patients in all categories of macular degeneration. If you're not utilizing MacuHealth for your patients, check it out for yourself by contacting your MacuHealth representative. But basically, in my basement, I've got this area by the sump pump that I don't know if I showed you last time you were here, but where this was all getting built. But now it was just a totally empty space. And so me and my buddy, I haven't done like manual labor like that. Like, you know, I clean up the yard, I fix things around the house, that kind of thing. But like actually like building something like that from brand new outside of doing like landscaping stuff, I haven't done that since I was in optometry school and we renovated our house. And man, it's been really fun to do.
Yeah.
Really fun to do.
There's something about like that kind of work that just makes you feel, it just extroverts you. I think it just kind of like, you're not thinking, cause when you're running a business and all these other things, you have to deal with people's emotions and, all kinds of, human interaction. But when you're just dealing with stuff, I think it's a little bit different. But that's great, man. Did you?
Yeah,
Are you like, are you hooked now? Are you going to like start building after this is done? Or are you going to like,
no, it's taken, I think we started. So the thing that made me do it, I would not have done it is, so there was a couple things I've never done before. Like I didn't do the drywall. I paid somebody to do the drywall. That's too, like, I know enough to know that I could spend days and weeks trying to sand that down and redo it and sand it down and redo it. So, but I wouldn't have done the studs. Like I wouldn't have known how to, like, the importance of lining those up square and level is so important. And so I have a buddy that I work out with that he's actually in IT at a big financial company, kind of management in IT. And he did it in college. And he's fast, like he's way faster than I am, but he's also like a perfectionist, which is exactly what you need for that kind of thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So that's been fun. And in learning like the electricity, like it's not that hard. I mean, I've done electrical stuff before, but really like wiring it all from scratch and then running all the mic cables through the walls and all the HDMI cables and everything that I could possibly want is now in there. And so then it's just been fun of okay, troubleshooting how I'm going to get the wiring where I want it. So when I hit this switch, the studio lights come on. Yeah. And then actually I put even like a red light on the door outside. So like when it's on, Dad's recording.
So everyone knows, right?
Yeah.
So did you have it all mapped out? I mean, did you like design it and then say, this is what I want? And then from there, just kind of structure it and build it from there?
Yeah. I'm hoping that the next one I do, I'll be able to do a live one. And that's the other reason is that there's a lot of optometrists. I will have some conversations with other optometrists in Nebraska and they will do it physically, but I have conversations with other people that are local and I'm just excited to be able to do like a couple times a month, a live in-person one. And it'll be a nice space. It'll be a quiet space. And yeah, so I did map it all out and it's just been fun to do.
Well, yeah, the background looks good. We kind of did something similar to here.
Yeah, it looks great.
It looks, it is kind of fun to create this. It's, but it's a lot more work than what I think people realize. It's not just hooking up a microphone and talking to people, you got
to be consistent. So you last time, I think you guys were building this new studio that you're in right now. And I think last time you were just in front of a black curtain. Is that right?
Probably. And, quite honestly, we just, we did some other things, but I didn't really get serious about like actually doing the whole Riverside FM. And, we hired a group, actually, I think the same group that connected you with us, Jeremy. And, he just knows how to do podcasts, like really, really professional. So I was like, all right, well, I just hired him to help with the production. And so we started doing that. Now I'm kind of doing what you're doing right now. I'm just, I'm interviewing practice owners and other people in the healthcare industry, and doing it, like this. But every once in a while I can have guests come in locally because we're in Clearwater, Florida. And I mean, who doesn't want to visit here? And, we can bring, people in locally and kind of do what you're talking about, like actually having in-person conversations. And that's fun too.
Yeah. Do you find that to be an easier conversation or a harder one to manage?
Oh, way harder.
Really? In person?
Yeah, man. This is awesome. Just like this, I don't know why, but when cause I'm worried, how do I look? Do I look fat? Is my shirt tucked in, like should I be crossing my legs? Is the angle good? I'm not worried about how it looks because it's really comfortable but there's just other things that I guess are part of it that make me get my attention off of it sometimes. So I don't know. How many guests have you done in studio?
I think my best ones are in studio. So I don't know. You probably don't listen regularly, but there was there's well, actually, as far as my favorite, so I'll just say this right away. As far as my favorite episodes go, you are one of my favorite episodes. And so actually,
Brother,
I wanted to
do it again.
then.
Let's do it again.
Yeah. The thing I'd love to basically kind of make you a regular, especially now that you're podcasting, you probably get some additional benefit, and I'd love to make you a more regular guest. You don't have to wait to reach out. You can text me.
Okay.
But I'll probably just need to text you and kind of put it on the schedule because you got so many things to talk about. But the in-person stuff is what I really like. And so you're one of my favorite guests. Obviously we didn't do that in person, but probably it's still top 5, Joe Schaffner. It's an episode called Get Jedi'd, and man, like I still get goosebumps when I think about it, but it was all in person, and he's got this great podcasting voice. And I mean, it was
really deep. And is it like one of those like
authoritative?
Sounds like, oh God. Yeah.
He has pause for effect, I mean, it's wonderful.
I'm curious now, Get Jedi. That sounds like a little bit more than just, let's not talk about mechanics. Let's talk about kind of like, the Force, He
was talking, I mean, the intro portion, we had a conversation. It was mainly about F3, how he found his way to F3. And he was essentially just describing, he was in the parking lot. F3 is a fitness group. Stands for Fitness, Fellowship, and Faith.
Okay.
It's a nationwide men's only workout group. It's free.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's open to all men. It's always outside, and there's really no catches. Honestly, it would blow your mind. I got to send you a book. Actually, I'm going to send you a book. I'll send you a book, and you can read it. But anyway, I'm sure actually in Clearwater, I would bet if you Google F3 Clearwater, you will find it. It's been amazing. I started doing F3 probably 2 months after our last conversation. And I'll tell you, I didn't know I needed it. And it's been a great thing, man. I feel like I just read Dianetics.
Really?
No, I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding about that part, but it's been great. It's been great.
Well, I've read Dianetics so many times. It's such a great book. If you ever read it.
So you got to look it up because I'm sure they have a group in Clearwater.
I will check it out, man.
Yeah,
for sure.
So anyway, but he was telling me how he got, he called it, I got Jedi'd, so he got, like emotional headlock, so that's what kind of locked him into the group. And he was just walking out of a grocery store, and a guy that saw him, that it knew him through his wife, like a couple years before. They just were basically like people that you might pass somebody and be like, I recognize that guy. And this guy was in his truck and said, hey, and he said, hey, Joe, what's going on? How are you? And he was kind of like, hey man, what's going on? And he goes, and so he just, he started up a conversation. How things going? And he goes, what are you doing tomorrow morning? I don't know what I'm doing. Why don't you come work out with me? And he goes, that was it. I was Jedi'd. And that's why I titled it that, but anyway,
like that.
You got to listen to it, man. It is a phenomenal. If you don't even Google anything about F3, listen to that episode. It will hook you.
Yeah. I'll check it out for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
His name's
Joe Schaffner.
Joe Schaffner.
Yeah.
It's like a good American.
Oh yeah.
Joe Schaffner. Hey, my buddy, Joe Schaffner. I like that name.
You'll
check it out. Yeah.
I'll
check it out.
Yeah. Listen, Eric, I could do this for a long time with you. I
know,
but I do want to be respectful of your time as well. So tell me, one of the reasons that we've had John before, and if I'm thinking back to what I really enjoyed about our conversation, was I learned things about, the financial aspects of being a business owner that I didn't know before, and it is actually kind of that type of stuff over the last 3 years has become increasingly important in my practice. Is what is the value of the practice? Not just to give me a job or to give other people a job, which is certainly important, but there's all these other values of a practice. And you write a lot about that. And so that's what I was hoping we could discuss today is like, how do you look at your business as a machine that generates wealth in ways that are both obvious, right? In terms of I put money in a bank account, but also non-obvious to a lot of people, unless you're really thinking about them, is that, well, I have all these other areas where I have advantages from a tax standpoint, from an investment standpoint, where other people don't have those same advantages. And so actually, I think this applies to even a greater discussion. I had a conversation with a buddy from F3 this week, and he's working. He's an employed guy. He's kind of a blue collared guy, but he has aspirations. He works hard, and he has aspirations for doing that for himself. And I said, his name is Bouncer. I said, Bouncer, this is a no-brainer, man. Like, you've got Bouncer. To. No, his nickname. Yeah.
I love it.
And I said, this is a no-brainer, man. You just got to branch out on your own. Like, you just got to just do it. I said, I promise you, in 6 months, you'll never look back. I mean, the amount of money you have to generate every month is not that much. Your risk. I was like, let's play this out. If everything goes wrong, like, what's your risk? If everything totally goes wrong, what are you out? And I think I hope I sparked a little bit of fire there, but that's what I wanted to discuss today.
Let's do it. Yeah, I like that. It's we can talk. I think this is the fatal flaw of most healthcare owners is when they look at. Well, we can talk about that as we go. It's the fatal flaw. Yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's the. There's a big difference between, owning a healthcare practice and then actually having financial success as a practice owner. There's a difference between the two, because I've seen many people that have owned practices, but yet have not really got to enjoy any of the fruits of their labor or have gotten to enjoy the benefits of that. And it's primarily the reason that I've seen, and, this is just over 15 years of observing and talking to practice owners over that period of time, is that they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on how to be an awesome practitioner, right? I mean, you went to school to learn the trade, and you learned, all of those things, and they spend almost no time learning how to be a great owner investor. And you're not going to make it financially unless you adopt an owner investor mindset and kind of get away from just always thinking about the practitioner role that you have. And that's been my contention, over time, because when you start thinking of an owner investor mindset, I start thinking about, okay, this practice is not a job, it's an investment. How do I get maximum value from that investment? That just doesn't mean money, right? It could mean time, it could mean recognition, it could mean acknowledgement, it could mean tax benefits, like you had mentioned. It's a lot of things that you can recognize from it, but you have to think like an owner investor.
How do you assess whether or not, because I don't know if I am, honestly, I think I might be.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
but,
you are.
But how would you assess? So we know each other a little.
Yeah.
But you can already see that in your opinion, you think that that's the case for me. So what do you look for when you see the difference between, an owner who just has a job versus an owner who is an owner investor? What are the kind of key metrics or the key indicators that say, Chris Wolfe, he's an owner investor, Joe Bob, he's a employed doctor that happens to own his business?
Yeah. I mean, one thing that I'll definitely take a look at is how they compensate themselves. Okay. So we'll see that right away when I'm talking to a practice owner. The first question I'll ask them, how much do you pay yourself? Well, I pay myself a salary of, $120,000. I go, what else? Right? That's your practitioner pay. Do you pay yourself anything else? Like, well, I may take out a draw every once in a while if it's available, but that's pretty much it. I'm talking to someone that is still stuck in the practitioner role. Okay. So they're not thinking like an owner investor, because an owner investor is going to say, okay, all right, I have my role as my practitioner. I'm going to pay myself whatever I would pay myself for the production that I do. But I also have this role as an executive, because I have to run this thing, and I'm there to, organize and manage people. And, I have to make sure that the organization is functioning. And, and even if I hire a practice manager, I'm still the CEO, and I still have to run the finances to the degree. Right. So why I got to get compensated for that? And what am I paying myself anything? And then I'm an owner, right? Like, I took a risk to put this practice here. if this thing goes to hell in a handbasket, if I get sued, if I have a rogue employee that sues me for some reason, if I have a regulatory body that comes in and says, you shouldn't have done that, and we need $200,000 right now. Who are they going to come after? They're not going to come after the techs. They're not going to come after the front desk people. They're going to come after me. So I have to understand the risk that I'm taking as a practice owner. And, not only that, but look, you have multiple associates right now. You have other practitioners in your,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay.
Just one. We lost one. She moved for love to San Diego.
God dang it.
I can't blame her.
Yeah, that happens.
Yeah.
What was she producing for you guys pretty well?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So, what happened to the value of your business when she left? I mean, that production's.
It's totally right. I mean, we've had to take over, between me and the other doctor, we've had to, take over those patients and try to keep producing.
Yeah. Now, for God forbid you lose the other one. I mean, the value of your practice goes from right here to right here. I'm trying to remember the stats of what a good producing optometrist is worth in value to the enterprise. It's over $1 million, and so you can see like it can precipitously drop right away. So you're taking a monumental amount of risk. Okay. So there's got to be a mechanism in place where you're getting compensated for that risk. There's been if I'm talking too much, just let me know.
No. I'm going to let you
rant on this, but obviously there's been a lot of, corporate buying of optometry practices. I'm sure you've seen them. I'm sure you've been approached by that. And, and we're starting to see more of these, private equity groups come into play. And, it was interesting and it's happening in all the healthcare industries, but the first thing that they'll do, when they acquire practices, if they bought your practice, right, the first expense that they would take out would be a 10% management fee that would go directly to the parent company, right? And you're like, why do they do that? Okay, because they understand that this thing is an investment and we need to make sure we're getting our money back for this, all right? So to kind of circle back, what you were talking about is that every owner has to make sure that they are incorporate some kind of owner compensation for themselves that goes directly to their family unit, their household. All right. Because your family unit is the parent company and your business is simply a subsidiary asset of your parent company, which is your household. And I wish more people would think like that, but it's
well, how many people do you encounter? So to me, I think it's just kind of logical. Like when, we didn't do this until probably the last few years, actually since COVID. But we would be more reactionary. One of my friends, Dr. Mick Kling, he's talked about profit first. And, and so we did a little bit of profit first when I first learned about it from him. But that was years ago, even before COVID. But then since COVID, I really made it a point to do exactly what you're talking about, is that, on a weekly basis, not even on a monthly basis.
No, definitely.
I pay myself. I take money from the operating account, and it goes right into a savings account. And that savings account is mine, basically. Mm-hmm. It's kind of what I like to do is I take it from the operating account into what I call my profit account. And that's, owner profit. And it's a certain percentage every single week. And then I kind of hold it there. And I like to hold it there psychologically for a little, for one reason. One is I'm still in the back of my mind. I remember what happened during COVID. Yeah. So I kind of like having something that's pretty liquid there in case, but that's not what it's really for. Then the other reason I hold it there is because if I put it in my own personal bank account, then it's real. Right.
And it's real.
So it's like, yeah. And then I've got it. Then I'm like, oh, I got this extra money. I got a lot of money here. Okay, well, but I don't. And so that's just a psychological barrier for me to be like, well, it's just one step away. I know I have it, but I'll be less likely to spend money if it's sitting in that account. So anyway, that's kind of the psychological stuff that I've done, but we've been way more purposeful since COVID than before that. But how often do you see
owner
practitioners? Exactly. Yeah.
Owner investor, right?
Yeah.
Owner investor knows that if you do not assign money a purpose, then it will eventually go everywhere, and the organization will eventually consume it all, right? Because that's what organizations do. Organizations, and this isn't just regulated to like businesses, it's countries, it's families at large, right? And look, I mean, look at how we run the nation's finances, right?
Yeah.
It is run by committee, and committees are insane when it comes to running finances. It's a one-person job. Okay. And once you kind of grasp that, that's why every business needs a CFO, or a family needs a CFO, someone that's in charge that can say no. And I guess my point is though, but that's thinking like an owner investor. And you did. No one, and unfortunately, and I think we got a survey like by this, is that most people are taking advice not from people like me, people like you that know what they're doing. They're taking advice from their accountants. They're taking advice from advisors who really don't specialize in business ownership, right? They're just kind of, I mean, they're retirement plan advisors. And I think what ends up happening is that most of those people aren't trained to understand how to be good owner investors as well, right? And it's especially CPAs is the one that I'm like, and I love having a good CPA, and they're awesome, and you know, it's important to have one. And I'm not a CPA, so I don't want to like discount the fact that you need one. But unfortunately, I think too many people listen to their CPAs for all their financial advice, right? And CPAs are really good at certain things, but I found that they're not very good when it comes to how to scale, how to build a business, and how to make sure you're getting maximum value for it. They're good at making sure that you're minimizing your tax liability, but sometimes those two things oppose each other, right? And the fact that you're taking profit out of your business, it's going to drive CPAs crazy because you're like, what are you doing? You're going to increase your tax liability. I go, I know, but you're missing this point, is that I don't want to be reliant upon this practice for the rest of my life. And while it's a cash flow machine right now, I got to make sure I extract a certain percentage so I can set aside over here. And to your point, the only thing that I would do differently is I would physically remove it and take it out and put it in your personal account for liability purposes, for a number of reasons. But then just make sure that you have a plan of where that money's going to go to invest in cash flow investments. And then that way over the next, I mean, because you're a young guy, I mean, you got 10, 15 years, 20 years. I mean, you should be done with this game in 7 to 10 years by doing that.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that because that's exactly where my head is at now. It's like I keep it in that sort of holding account for a little while, and it makes me feel, like I said, those two emotions, but then the math gets to me, right? Like it's just a savings account, and it's not even, then when I get it to my personal accounts, I've got even a high yield savings account, and then it's the investment stuff, right? So like, yeah, I mean, I appreciate that advice because it kind of affirms what I'm feeling a little bit within
Yeah.
that.
And it's good.
The interesting part that you brought up about CPAs, we'll come back to that in a second because I wanted to get to your CPA comment. Is I love my CPA. I love to also make him feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so I also have like a group of tax attorneys and other business, like yourself, business consultants that like and I'll be like, well, this is what we want to do, and here's the tax law, and here's the business law, and last year he said, Chris, this is he goes, this is risky. And I was like, is it illegal?
That's right.
And he was like, no, it's not illegal. And I could just tell he was uncomfortable, right? Like I don't want to. Bit. Yes.
Like this.
Yes. So, but I love my accountant. I listen to a lot of the things he does, and no, he didn't say risky. He said aggressive. Yeah. This is aggressive. And, but I said, but anyway, the point is that, I think you're right. Like I think there is this intuition to ask for your accountant's opinion on what you should do. And my CPA also owns his practice. But his practice isn't my practice, and his business is different than my business. And so I think a lot of times like people will be like, well, can I afford to do this? Or can I afford to buy that? And they listen to what their accountant says. And that may not, like to your point, that may not be the best place to only go.
Yeah. Sometimes the advice like that is diametrically opposed to what you actually should be doing. Because that question will get posed a lot. Like, hey, can I afford to hire another optometrist? Can I afford to buy this piece of equipment? Can I afford to, get this other location? And I think the owner investor, the entrepreneur, they're going to be like, I need to take a risk, right? And that's going to be, sometimes the numbers aren't necessarily going to justify taking that risk, right? And you need to just kind of like massage the two, like, is this a calculated risk? Am I confident in my own abilities to make this go right? And I know my accountant says the numbers, may not add up right now, but I believe in myself. And I know that I know what I'm doing here because I know this business and I know this industry. And I understand now after practicing it for, however long you've been practicing it, I can make this go right,
Yeah.
And that's something that you have to sometimes negotiate with yourself and do that. And the advice that you get would be contra to that in most cases, because I think a lot of people are fearful of expansion. And I don't think you need to be. I think that should be on the forefront of your mind all the time. How can I expand?
Well, and I think that's the other, that is hard. I mean, that mindset is a little bit hard, even as my business, as a business owner for me, I'm like, cause I feel like that. I feel like, well, as a practice, we've got to keep growing. If we're not growing, we're dying. And you can really even see that in terms of like, even just this year, I know if I kept the exact same health insurance, and again, I've got a new guy now with our insurance for our team that, for our office insurance that we would provide for our staff is, he seems to be a lot more, creative than the guy that we've used for a long time. And I'm just like, why didn't this other guy get creative? We've had 8% increase in healthcare costs, 10% increase in healthcare costs. This year, it's going to be 19% if we stayed with our exact same plan and our exact same provider. But I've got this other guy who has figured out ways to give our employees basically the same out of pocket, the same, total cost, but he's become inventive to give other sort of ability, like gap coverage ability and those sorts of things that get them down to effectively, from their perspective, it's the same thing. And we actually have a reduction. And so it's like, it's hard as a business owner to know, well, like the guy that I use for a long time, I just trust him that he's gone out to shop other plans, but it's going to be 20% increase. Like if I do business like that, we can't, if we don't grow, we cannot stay in business, to your point.
No. Yeah.
So, but at the same time, it's like, if all we're thinking, so yeah, you have to do both ends, right? You have to continue to grow, but you also like, and invest and take risk. But then at some point you're just like, you can't just outgrow all those other problems. So anyway, I don't know.
It's true. I mean, expansion is kind of an interesting thing. You do have to be in a certain condition to expand. And I would never expand. Like, I'll give you an example of this. I had someone come to me and they're like, hey, and they had their practice rate was operating at about 50% of its current capacity of what it could do. Number one, he didn't even know that. So when I asked him, I'm like, hey, your practice, it's 3,000 square foot. You got a couple of exam rooms. What is your capacity level that you could, function? And here's another owner investor, right? Kind of indicator. Like when I ask someone what it is that your practice, like what is the biggest expense that you have? Right now, I'll ask you that question because
it's employees and cost of goods. Those are the two biggest. Yeah.
Right. So, and I say that because the biggest expense that you have is not on your profit and loss statement. The biggest expense that you have is money that you had the opportunity to make and didn't.
Fair enough.
Right.
Yeah.
So, when you ask someone, hey, I got this facility that's 3,000 square foot, what could you be doing if you were fully staffed, if you had maximum number of patients and your average transaction was in a profitable range? I don't know. I'm like, okay, you're not treating your practice like an investment because you need to know that number because that's the goal that you're shooting for. So I think it's starting there. And I had a point that I was going to make on that, but that to me is like, so
it was about expansion.
To go back to the story, this guy was 50% of his current capacity. And he's talking about buying another practice down the street. I'm like, dude, your current facility is not even maximized, right? I mean, you got to wait until this thing is maximized, get it up to at least 80, 90%. Then you can start thinking about expanding, right? But you got plenty of expansion opportunity here in your current facility. And I don't think a lot of people really look at that. They're like trying to chase the next shiny object. And it's like, no, like look at what your current facility could do, map it all out. And we have some tools that we've helped people with to figure that out. It's not hard to do. I mean, you guys know your numbers. You know how many people you can see a day. You know what your average transactions are. You know all the things that just map it out.
Yep.
And you'd be surprised. You'd be like, wow, I can probably do about $2 million out of this thing. And I'm doing 1.5. I got $500,000 more to go. So, I mean, that to me is owner investor mindset right there.
Yeah. I see that all the time. So I see what you're talking about I see that all the time where, this, underperformance and actually not even underperformance, but it's more to your point it is knowable. Like those things are knowable. And you just have to do a little bit of math to get to those things.
Yeah. It's not hard. And I think that is the job of an owner investor. So to go back to what your, original question was, like, how do I know if I'm an owner investor, right? You're looking at the value of your practice, how to increase its capacity, how to increase these things are on your mind, right? It's not just, I'm thinking about case management. I'm thinking about these other things as well. Yeah. And, and I think the third thing would be, how well of a leader you are and getting people to buy into the purpose of the organization. I think that's a very, very important role of an owner as well, and not accepting mediocrity, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a tough one. I think that's the one that I struggle the most with is, maybe not. Yeah, I'd say struggle is just, I want my people to be happy, right? Like I want because I know that if we have a good team that's happy and is committed to the office, then that's going to translate into better patient care. And so I think I do worry, like I do think about that a lot more. But at the same time, I don't know how much is healthy to think about, because then there's this other point that you look at other companies, like for example, my associate doctor, her husband he works for a huge corporation and he's in HR and he had to lay a bunch of people off, recently. And he's had to do that over the last few years. And, he reads a statement and he doesn't deviate from that statement, and probably nobody's that upset at him. Maybe they're a little bit upset at him, but really they understand that it's this corporation that's doing it, and the corporation is doing it, and they're not really a individual human. But in my office, if I've got to let somebody go, or if I have to make a business decision that impacts my staff, like it's not exclusively I Care that made that business decision, right? It's Chris Wolfe that made the business decision, and I'm the guy that's going to have to bear the brunt of that, the ramifications of that. So I think that gives a lot of us as business owners, individual business owners, small business owners, a little bit more pause. Am I accurate about that, or is that just me?
Oh no, there are plenty of people who have employees working for them that are either covertly or overtly counterintending the purpose of the organization, and a lot of people just can't confront getting rid of that person for a number of reasons. Number one, they think the work would then overwhelm the rest of the staff, and number two, they just can't confront like someone doing something like that to them, right? And I try to tell people in a number of cases, I would rather have nobody doing a post or a job than an incompetent person doing that job. They're much more destructive than nobody doing it. And but that's the hardest thing to do, but it also creates a miracle, because anytime that you've gotten rid of someone that is toxic or that is, destructively to the group, I mean, your stats just start going through the roof after that. And everyone seems happy. And actually what ends up happening is the work does get absorbed by everyone else, because they're just so damn happy that person's out of the office. Yeah. So I know it's a tough thing, but this is the reality of when you have, most private practice owners are 10, 12, 15 employees, maybe less, maybe a little bit more. But so you're right. It is, it is on you. It is one of those things that, and again, this is why you need to pay yourself correctly, because these are some of the things you have to deal with that nobody else does.
You made a comment. So I'm 42, and I've said since I've been out of school that I wanted to be able to retire by 55. That number has gotten smaller. And so it's interesting to me that you said early on in the conversation.
What number is that?
My age has gotten the number that I want to be able to retire has gotten smaller. I'm not going to retire. I would be shocked if at 50. I was going to say. I mean, at 50, I would be shocked if I was going to be like, I'm done. But to be able to is a different thing. Right. And, cause I really do. I've said this on the podcast, numerous times. I love what I do. I love seeing patients. I love doing this kind of stuff. I love consulting for other practices. I like developing new content and delivering it for the subscribers. And I don't envision that I'll do that that I won't like to do that in 10 years. I maybe it may look differently. But I think I like that stuff. I like doing it. My question to you is, you said if I'm a business, if I'm an owner investor and I'm doing it well, then I might have 7 to 10 years. You said 10 years, maybe 7 years, you should be out of the game. Or maybe you meant you could be out of the game.
Could be out of the game. Well,
explain to the listeners, because people are thinking 42 years old, retire at 50? Be able to be out of the game at 50? How does that work? How do you see that working with most owner investors?
Yeah. And when I say that, look, there is an ideal financial scene that I think everyone needs to apply to themselves. Like, what is it that you want your life to look like? Everyone's numbers going to be a little bit different, in terms of like how much you need. I will say that I think most people underestimate how much that they need. And that is something that you have to, because we have taxes, we have inflation, and those things aren't going away. And the values of the dollar keeps going, so I'd be very cautious to sell a practice at this point in time, just because it's such a massive cash flow machine, and you're never going to get, the same amount that you earn from the practice on the sale proceeds, not even close. So, but I'm really just talking about, saying, in 7 to 10 years, if you are, like we talked about, taking that 10% off the top and your practice is growing and profitable and viable, then there's no reason in that time frame you should have all your personal debt should be paid off, not your business debt or building debt if you have real estate and all that. Your practice should have a high value. You should have plenty of reserves at that point in time that could pay for your basic lifestyle that you needed. And you should have at that point in time, time to do all the things that you want to do. Now you're kind of like an owner practitioner because you still like to practice, right? And that's fine. I'm sure you probably have hired an office manager or an executive in there that can help run some other things. So that frees up your time to just focus on those two activities right there. Okay. Some people want to get out of practicing, so they need to make sure that they hire really good practitioners and train them and be more owner executives. Okay. And you can be whatever you want to be, just know yourself, and I think that's the key. But, in as far as turning that into financial independence, or financial security or whatever, word you want to use, it's the habits of what we just talked about, getting these accounts set in place, making sure that you're separating the money out of the business account, making sure that you're investing that money properly, and that you're forging a life that you want to live, and everyone's going to be different. Some people need $10 million. Some people need $5 million. Some people need $25 million. It's really up to you. But I would think that, you'd want to have a life where you'd never had a concern about money at all. How much that is, it's going to be different for everybody.
The most common questions I get include, what ophthalmological codes or evaluation and management codes should I use? What ICD-10 codes do I need to bill with this CPT code? What CPT codes can be billed together and what can't? And my favorite, how do I manage a patient who has diabetes who comes in for a quote-unquote routine eye exam? These questions really highlight the confusion and uncertainty that serves as a daunting hurdle for providers, makes it more challenging for them to care for their patients and provide those patients with the best opportunity for a lifetime of ocular health and clear vision. That's why we built iCode Education for this specific purpose. Our mission is to provide optometrists with resources to help you understand disease states, revenue cycles, and billing and coding so that you can put that on autopilot and truly care for your patients. Check out iCodeEducation.com. That's EYECODE education.com. We've developed a premier billing and coding bundle that includes all of our billing and coding resources in one place. We also have a 10% discount code just for listeners of this podcast. Enter the coupon code EYECODEMEDIA22 at checkout. We'd love to work with you. Check out iCodeEducation.com. Yeah. I mean, I think, you touch on probably the last point that I'll bring up is just that, and Adam Schmiel and I have talked about this a ton, is just, like you said, the practice allows you a lifestyle. Some of that is financial, some of it is money. And I think that's the obvious one everybody thinks about. But the other is, I mean, if I sell the PE tomorrow or in a month, I'm not seeing patients 3 days a week for them. I'm going to see patients 5 or 6 days a week for them. And I'm definitely not getting out of, and if I want a day off in the summer because my kids got to do something, or I want to attend a meet right now, I'm beholden to the 20 patients on my schedule that we're going to have to reschedule. But then it's like, nope, you can't have that day off, Chris. You don't get that opportunity if I don't own my practice. And there's all sorts of things that flow from that that are just intangible in a lot of ways.
I don't see a lot of people after they sell to private equity last very long at the practice after that. I mean, a lot of them may sign like 1 or 2 year employment contracts, but honestly, most of them that I've seen are out of there in like 6 months, 8 months, unless
they have to, because it's part of their,
they have some kind of an earn out, or they have to make sure that, which would be terrible. Like, can you imagine like now I have to continue to run this thing and act like an owner, but I'm really not. And I have to keep the profit margins up, and I really don't want to be here in the first place. Like, oh, that would be terrible. So don't do earnouts. Anybody, please don't do them. Those are, I mean, they're great for the buyer. They're terrible for the seller. Yeah, I mean, I think, to your point, all those things are things you have to take into consideration, before you decide that you want to exit out. And it is a tough thing, but it just proper planning and certainty on your finances, I think, can help make good decisions on that.
Yeah. Well, listen, I got a ton more to talk to you about, so we'll just do this on a follow-up. We could do another, well, I'll probably even just schedule this so it's on top of mind, and we'll just do a follow-up conversation about all sorts of other things. I've got discussion. I'm building a building, and I want to pick your brain about if that was a smart decision or not a smart decision.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah. Thanks.
I love it. Yeah. I think it's a great idea, especially if, buildings for healthcare businesses right now. I mean, I bet you the moment that thing's up, you're going to get a call from another private equity group that specializes in healthcare buildings. And they'll probably say, hey, we'll buy your building from you, because they're trying to do the same thing. And because the leases are great, so if you're all in on that, dude, all in. Plus, you're going to get an awesome tax benefit once the thing's built.
Yeah.
Okay. And
my accountant was excited about that. He was the comment I'm talking to you about, where he said risky or aggressive was related to the building, and just the financial aspects of it. But he was like, on the other side, Chris, do X, Y, and Z, start another corporation, and it's going to have additional benefits, just as you're talking about. But what the last point about that, because I do want to dive deeper in this, but now that I'm thinking about it, is about a year ago, I did a whole deep dive into like where the money actually goes in private equity. And one of those things, there's a big story on private equity purchasing hospitals. And how they were basically they just suck wealth out of the business. And one of the things that they were sucking the wealth out of was the property. So they basically were owning the property, and then they jack up the rents on the property to maximize what they're pulling out of that tenant, which is the hospital. And then now this property has all these other benefits that they are getting and pulling wealth out of it. It was just I have to go back and re-look at some of that information before that next conversation. But I was just like, man, this is unbelievable.
They know how to take money. I mean, hate them or not, I mean, they do understand that part of it that I wish a lot of other practice owners did. And you just try to mirror some of the successful things that they do and then ignore the other things that they do. The only thing I hate about private equity is that they have a story that, we're not going to treat your practice any different. We're going to leave you alone. Our job, we want to see you grow. And I'm like, no, you don't. You guys don't care. You guys just want to create this big ball of EBITDA at some point in time so you can recap and flip it somewhere else. Scorpion's a scorpion, and that's not going to change. So, I guess I'm a little jaded just because I hear so many people saying, well, this is a different type of private equity group.
I know. I know.
Please explain their business model to me. They're like, well, this is what they want to do. I'm like, okay, well, they are private equity. This is what they're going to do.
Yeah. But, and it's not just optometry. I've heard it from people who have sold to private equity and every single other entity. And it's fine. I understand the doctor that's in that position and does it, but you got to know what you're getting into.
That quick question, like how do you envision you exiting out? And like, if I asked you that, because let's say you had plenty of money and you're going to have this, you're going to have, with the building, with all, with what you have going on with the podcast, you're putting away your profit account and all these other things. Yeah. You're going to have plenty of money set aside that the sale proceeds are just going to be a kind of a cherry on top. Okay. So that being said, if if money wasn't an issue, how would you want to transition out? I feel like I'm doing.
Well, I think that's the key is I hope that by the time I'm 50 or 55, money isn't an issue, and the sale of my practice is cherry on top. And I think then that allows me to transition that practice to a younger doctor. Maybe it's my current associate, and one of my kids, or another associate, where I can receive some financial benefit from it, but ultimately they're in a very good financial spot where they can make that payment for the loan they have to take out to buy me out, but it's not exorbitant. You know what I mean? Like
right.
it's manageable for them. They're on good footing. They can keep delivering eye care to our community without being financially strapped. That's what I hope. And that's why if I do these things the right way, then I can be selective on that transition. And I'm not stuck by saying it's the only person that can afford my practice. Cause the reality is right now, Eric, is that, we generate a lot of revenue, as a practice, and it would be very hard for somebody to come in and write the check, to purchase that outside of private equity. But if I don't have to worry about that amount, I can give a little on it, or a lot, then maybe that's bad business. But I think that allows the next generation to keep doing what they want to do.
No, that's
keep taking care of patients.
That's actually thinking besides about just yourself, which I think when you start looking at how you transition out of your practice, it just cannot be how much money am I going to get? Is it good for the employees? Is it good for the community? Is it good for the patients? And is it good for the next owner? And that is where you're starting to think like a little bit more, outside of just the bubble of yourself. And I think that's an important thing to do for every owner when they're thinking about selling. So Thanks. You should write down that. You should write that down on a piece of paper, exactly how you want to exit out. Right. And then I'm sure we're going to talk before 10 years from now, but, in 10 years, I would be interested to see, like, when you do transition out, we're going to pull out that piece of paper and you're going to be like, dang, check mark the box on all those things, didn't I? I was like, yep.
Yeah. I got to do that. Yep.
Get it out of your head, get it on a piece of paper. That's pretty successful.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah, buddy.
Well, Eric Miller, thanks so much for doing this. I appreciate it. We will have you back on. Where can people find you if they want to reach out and pick your brain and use your services for their personal goals?
You can just go to wealthforpracticeowners.com, wealthforpracticeowners.com. And that'll take you to, a landing page. We have financial assessments. We have, a lot of data on our website. And we actually have a pretty cool assessment that you can take that will give you a score of your current finances, like a credit score that, is a good gauge to where you stand right now. At least gives you something that you can say, okay, this is areas that I need to improve on, whether it's debt and credit or estate planning or taxes or investments or business viability. We kind of break all that down and give you a really cool score so you can, utilize that to make yourself better.
Awesome. Thanks so much.